right, in this lesson we are going to solve systems of equations by graphing. So we can do this pretty easily by graphing each one of these two lines and then seeing the point where our two lines cross on the graph. So remember that whenever you have a line that starts with y equals, this is called slope-intercept form, and it's in the form y equals mx plus b, where the number next to x is our slope, it's how we move, and the number by itself is our b, or where we begin. So let's think of that as we tackle these problems. So on number 1, my first line is y equals negative 2x plus 2. b is my last number. So I'm going to begin at 0, 2, because my b is positive 2. So I'm going to put my first point there. Notice that I always begin on my y-axis. Now my slope is my number in front of my x, which is negative 2 over 1. So that means I'm going to go down 2 and right 1. Now remember that if you have a slope that is not a fraction, write it as a fraction or put the number over 1. So I'm going to go from where I began, down 2, right 1. And I'm going to keep going with that pattern. I need to fit as many points on my graph as possible. I'm also going to go up 2, left 1 to keep my line going in the same direction and then connect my points. So that's my first line. Now my second one, my b is negative 3. So I'm going to begin at 0, negative 3, which is right here on my y-axis. Now my slope is my number in front of my x, and that's negative 1 over 3. So I'm going to go down 1 and right 3. Remember that if my slope is negative, I go down and right, and if my slope is positive, I go up and right. I always go right. So let's do this. Down 1, right 3. Down 1, right 3. Okay, so I can also go up 1, left 3. Those are the only points I can fit on my graph. And when I look at where my lines cross, they cross at this point right here, which is right 3, down 4. So 3, negative 4. So 3, negative 4 is my solution. Let's try another one. Okay. So for number 3, I've got my first line, which is y equals 3 over 2x minus 2. My b is that negative 2. So I'm going to begin at 0, negative 2. Now my slope is my number in front of my x. Remember that in slope-intercept form, our m is always next to our x, y equals mx plus b. And our m represents how we move. So my slope is 3 over 2. So 3 over 2. So I'm going to go up 3, right 2. Again, remember that if my slope is positive, I go up and right. If my slope is negative, I go down and right. So I begin at 0, negative 2, and then I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, right 2. Up 3, right 2. And then I can also go in the opposite direction from where I began, which is down 3, left 2. Okay, so that's my line. Now for my final line I want to graph, my b is a plus 2 or positive 2. So I'm going to begin at 0, positive 2. My slope is 1 over 2. My number in front of x is my slope. That is a positive 1/2, so I'm going to go up 1, right 2. So let's do that. From where I began, I'm going to go up 1, right 2. Up 1, right 2. And because I already have where my lines cross, I'm going to just quickly plot my other points. From where I began, down 1, left 2. Down 1, left 2. Okay, so where do my lines cross? They need to cross at an exact point, And the point they cross at is I go right 4, up 4. So that's going to be 4, comma, 4. Okay, so let's try a couple more. I'm going to try y equals negative x plus 4 and y equals negative x minus 3. So I begin for my first line at positive 4. So I'm going to begin at 0, comma 4. Remember that last number by itself is b. Now notice how there is nothing in front of my x, but we have learned in the past that when there's no number in front of your x, that's the same as a 1. Now be really careful. There's a negative in front of my x. So that means that my slope, remember slope must be a fraction, is negative 1 over 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write that on the side. Negative 1 over 1 is my slope. And remember that that means I'm going to go down 1, right 1. If my slope is negative, I go down and right. If it's positive, I go up and right. So let's get this line graphed. I'm going to begin at 0, comma 4. That's my b. And then I'm going to go down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. I'm just going to keep going with that pattern. Okay. Oops. Make sure that your lines are completely from one side of your graph to the other. Okay, so my last line, I begin at minus 3, which is the same as negative 3. So my beginning is at 0, negative 3. Again, my slope is negative 1 over 1 because I have a negative x for my slope. So if nothing is written in front of my x, that's the same as negative 1 over 1. So my slope is negative 1 over 1. And what that means is that I'm going to go, again, down 1, right 1. So I begin at 0, negative 3. I go down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. I also go up 1, left 1, all the way across the graph. Okay, so when you graph these types of lines, what do you notice? I think that what we can notice is that these lines are never going to cross. These are called parallel lines. Parallel lines are like train tracks. They'll never meet up. So what we can deduce from this is that when we have the same slope, so when we have the same slope on each line, our lines are never going to meet. So this is called a no solution because our lines will never cross. Now, sometimes when you graph, if you graph them correctly, it might look like your lines will never meet, and you might be tempted to say no solution, but it is important to note that you only have a no solution or truly parallel lines unless your two lines share the same slope. So another example of a no solution would be if two lines have a slope of 5 over 2. You go up 5, right 2 for each of your two lines, and they will never have a chance of crossing. So to remember that, to have no solution, you must have parallel lines or the same slope. All right, our last example for today. So my first line, I begin at negative 3. So 0, negative 3. And I'll write that out on the side if I can ever get this straight. There we go. Again, my slope is negative 1 over 1 because there's no number written in front of my x. And that means I'm going to go down 1, right 1. Now for my second line, I begin at 0, comma 2. And my slope is negative 6, but I have to write that as a fraction, negative 6 over 1. So I'll go down 6, right 1. So my first line, I begin at 0, negative 3, and I go down 1, right 1, and I do that across my whole graph since slope is consistent for the whole line. So my second line, I begin at 0, 2, 0, positive 2, and then I go down 6, right 1. Okay, so our lines cross at the point 1, negative 4. As you can see, that's right here. So right 1, down 4. So 1, negative 4 is my solution. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your assignment today. Let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to hearing from you guys soon. All right, take care.